Please give a virtual round of applause for California Democratic Party Vice Chair Betty Yee.
California Democrats, we've been hearing about how this election is going to be consequential. These midterms will be consequential. We've been hearing about what's at stake. We've been hearing about the importance of mobilizing the vote across all of our communities,
will be consequential.
taking no community for
We've been hearing
granted.
about what's at stake.
And you've just heard about the
We've been
resources
hearing
it
about
will
the
take
importance of
for us to do
mobilizing
that
the vote.
as a party. So I ask you, are we ready to take claim of these midterm elections? Good morning, Democrats, and welcome to the 2022 statewide endorsing convention. All our eyes around the nation were on California last fall as we resoundingly defeated the recall of our governor. And all eyes now are on California as Democrats organize for these midterm elections, consequential for our communities up and down the state, throughout our nation, and across our globe. Our democracy is at stake, even in blue California, as we witness right-wing militia-backed extremists mount recalls of Shasta County supervisors. For Nevada County supervisors and school board members in Orange County and other parts of the state, the price of their service, grounded in democratic values, the price of their service is becoming subject to a recall from office for working hard to ensure their constituents remain healthy and safe during this pandemic. Voting rights are at stake, even in blue California, as voter suppression takes on the form of rampant misinformation and disinformation about issues and candidates, and especially about voting itself. Reproductive rights are at stake, even in blue California, where we have the broadest protections while states across the nation restrict access to reproductive health services. However, all eyes will see that in California, Democrats do not back down. The state where we have the strongest gun safety laws in the nation, the state where we are vigilant about protecting the vote, the state where we have the most expansive reproductive health rights in the nation, and the state where we embrace our immigrant sisters and brothers. We are California. Our democracy will remain strong when each of us is able to fully participate in it. When we understand that diversity is our greatest strength and the differences among us are not weaponized, and when our collective work serves to uplift all communities, not just our own, leaving none behind. Democrats, we have much work to do while flanking the front line of protecting our democracy. We will organize, we will get out the vote, and we will prevail in these midterm elections. We are California. I am honored to introduce an extraordinary woman whose expansive work in the United States Congress is grounded in our democratic values. From spearheading passage of the historic Affordable Care Act in the House and leading the Congress in passing strong Wall Street reforms, to being the powerful, stalwart voice for women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, the rights of working people, and more, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has earned the distinction of leading some of the most productive sessions of our Congress. Her leading by example inspires countless numbers, including myself, and I know her children and grandchildren. Reflecting on one of her quotes, Washington and Congress are steeped in history and tradition, and that's been very male-oriented. How proud we were to see history being made this past week when our Vice President Kamala Harris and our House Speaker Nancy Pelosi framed President Biden as he addressed the nation. Madam Speaker, in this year of your 35th anniversary serving as the United States Representative, we thank you, we congratulate you, and we welcome you to our 2022 endorsing convention. California Democrats, I present to you the Speaker of the House and the pride of California, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you, Betty Yee, for your very warm and kind introduction and for your committed leadership for our party and for our state. And thank you for referencing my granddaughter, Bella, who's been a regular at these meetings, as my children were so many years ago. As a former party chair, it's always a thrill for me to return to my political home, the California Democratic Party, and to be with all of you, our VIPs, our volunteers in politics. I know that you will heed Harini's call, as April said, to participate. You are our VIPs. You make it all happen. Under the leadership of Chairman Rusty Hicks, we gather virtually today to proudly celebrate our state's many progressive champions and declare we are California. And as Speaker, it is my privilege to bring the gratitude of our magnificent House Democratic majority, which is about 70% women, people of color, and LGBTQ Americans. You heard from two great ones this morning, Maxine Waters and Adam Schiff, the chairs of the Financial Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. Many more are here for the proceedings. And a majority in the Congress, which California Democrats helped deliver in 2018 and protect in 2020. As Betty indicated, on Tuesday, I had the privilege of welcoming President Joe Biden and California's very own Vice President Kamala Harris to the House chamber as the president delivered his first State of the Union address. In his remarks, the president offered a powerful message of progress, empathy, and hope as he reflected on our achievements and on our agenda. Indeed, in the president's address, California's leadership and impact on our work in Washington were on full display. Because of the majorities that you helped build and defend, California values like equity and sustainability, justice and opportunity have been the cornerstone of our fight for the people. And with so many dazzling California Democrats leading the way, we have shown the nation and the world what democracy can deliver. Over the last year, our nation has built an historic recovery from the COVID crisis. Our economy is stronger, setting records last year for jobs created and small businesses started, while lifting millions of children out of poverty. Our families are healthier, with 2/3 of Americans fully vaccinated, children safely back to school, and healthcare more affordable and accessible than ever. And our future is brighter, with game-changing investments in our infrastructure for every community across the country, and doing so in a way that advances equity and social and environmental justice. In this fight, our brilliant California delegation has proudly delivered for the Golden State. We're under the leadership of Zoe Lofgren, who chairs our delegation. And we have made a difference in people's lives. Our American Rescue Plan secured more than $186 billion for the state of California to support our first responders and small businesses, safely reopen schools, increase paychecks, help families cover groceries and rent, and so much more. In addition to that $186 billion, our other bill, the bipartisan infrastructure law, includes many major investments already headed to California, from improvements to our ports and airports, to mass transit and high-speed rail, to strengthening our bridges, to getting the lead out of our drinking water, and expanding access to broadband, to name a few. But Democrats know we cannot simply rescue and recover. We must build a better America. Democrats know there is more we must do, for too many families still live paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep up with rising costs. While Republicans want to hike taxes, ban books, and attack vulnerable children, Democrats are for lower cost, higher wages, and better jobs. At the same time, too many are alarmed at the state of democracy at home and abroad, and worried about what it might mean for their families. While Republicans are spreading the big lie and suppressing the vote, Democrats are fighting to protect and expand our voting rights. Democrats value our veterans, But this week, too many Republicans voted against our bill to help veterans exposed to toxic chemicals in burn pits during their military service. This bill was advanced by Californian Mark Takano and supported by Raul Ruiz and so many others, Julia Brownlee and others. So to Mike Levin, our Californians were all there for our veterans. So to Republicans who would rather give handouts to the rich than care for our veterans, Democrats have a message for you. If you're not willing to pay the full cost of war, then don't go. Californians, as we gather for our convention today, democracy itself and all the progress it has helped to deliver faces grave and unprecedented challenges. We see threats across the Atlantic as Russia wages a diabolical, unprovoked war against Ukraine because Putin cannot stand to have a democracy at his doorstep. Our support and prayers are with the Ukrainian people, who have inspired the world with their iron will and dedication to defending their cherished democracy. We must stop buying and relying on Russian oil and all move to diversify our energy sources. That's how we defend our democracy. That's also how we protect our planet. Meanwhile, our nation faces threats to democracy as home, as I mentioned. A Republican Party orchestrating a cynical campaign of voter suppression and worse, election nullification. California, the times have found us once again. I do not say this lightly. Democracy and all that it stands for is on the ballot. And at this pivotal moment, we are called upon as Democrats, as Californians, and as Americans to defend democracy. So today, let us renew our pledge to build a future worthy of the vision of our founders, the values of our party, the sacrifice of our veterans and their families, and the aspirations of our children. God bless you all. God bless California. God bless America. And onward to a great Democratic victory in November. Thank you.
Welcome, the Vice President of the United States, California's own, Kamala Harris.
And hello to California Democrats. It is always good to be with our California family. We have all stood together over so many years and accomplished so much, and we all know there's still a lot to do. But I do want to thank you for all that you are. And I want to thank Rusty Hicks, Betty Lee. Thank you all for bringing us together today and always. And to everyone, thank you for showing up this year and every year. Before I begin, let me say a few words about the situation in Ukraine. The eyes of the world are on the brave people of Ukraine. They are fighting not just to defend their homes and their families, but their democracy and their freedom. As I said a week ago in Munich, Germany, and as President Biden has made clear continuously, we stand with our allies and partners and with the people of Ukraine. As an example of our alliance, I was just talking with Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, and she mentioned recently and reminded me about the longstanding partnership between the California National Guard and the Ukrainian Armed Forces. And that is yet another example of how we have longstanding relationships and are united in our principles and in our purpose. And now here at home, our home, California, the most populous state, the fifth largest economy in the world, well, the solutions we advance become national models. And the candidates we elect set the standard for leadership. Back in September, I joined Governor Gavin Newsom at a campaign rally in San Leandro. And I outlined then what kind of leaders we as Californians want. We want leaders who have a vision of what is possible and a plan to then make it so. We want leaders who inspire, not divide. Leaders who lift us up and not tear us apart. Who move us forward, not take us back. November's election is 8 months away. and so much is at stake. And I know people ask, well, why should I vote? Why should they vote, they ask. And I tell them, I think we all do. Look what happens when you vote. In the 2020 election, because people turned out in record numbers, we have made incredible progress on a number of issues. Think about one of the major crises we've been facing, which is the pandemic, and the progress we made in vaccinating this state and our nation. Because people voted, we've gotten people back to work. We're rebuilding our infrastructure and working to cut everyday costs for families around our country. Because people voted, we have put an historic number of Black women on the federal bench, and soon we will put an extraordinary jurist on the United States Supreme Court. Her name is Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she will be the first Black woman to serve on the United States Supreme Court because of and thanks to the leadership of California's 2 senators who both serve on the Judiciary Committee. Most recently, Senator Alex Padilla, and of course, a longtime leader and member of the committee, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who of course we are keeping in our hearts after the loss of her dear husband. And so as we work to confirm Judge Jackson, we know there is so much more that we can do together. Because people voted in record numbers, we are able to fight to protect the right to vote, a woman's right to choose, and the rights of workers and immigrants. And in California, we know the climate crisis isn't tangential, it's existential. And because you voted, we are fighting the climate crisis. We also know one more truth in California. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Where leaders in states like Texas attack transgender children and their families, well, we heard President Biden declare in his State of the Union address that we will protect these children and their families so they can be themselves and reach their God-given potential. That's who we are. And that's why you vote, and it is why people voted. So it is not hyperbole to say what we do between now and November will determine our future. California Democrats, just like you did in 2018, the blue wave swept across our nation. Just like you did in 2020, you sent Joe Biden and me to the White House. And I know you can elect California Democrats up and down the ballot in 2022. I know you will protect our frontline members who are most vulnerable and expand our reach into new areas of our state. It won't be easy, but it'll be worth it. So I will close today by simply saying thank you. Thank you for all you do and for your steadfast support. Please know that the President and I are grateful for both the trust that you instill in us and the work that you do to move our nation forward. Take care.
Next up is California Democratic Party Vice Chair David Campos. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, California Democrats. I don't know how anyone follows Vice President Harris or Speaker Pelosi. It is my honor to be here. I'm a former Angelino, proud San Franciscan, and proud to be here before you today as the Vice Chair of the California Democratic Party. I want to just echo the words of Vice President Harris and say that I too stand in solidarity with the people of the Ukraine. I know that the world, and certainly California, we are watching. Before I say anything about the work of the party, I want to acknowledge the incredible work of Yvette Martinez and the staff of the California Democratic Party, who are largely responsible for so many of the great work that has been done in the last year, including beating the recall of Governor Newsom. I also want to acknowledge my fellow officers, the 5 of us. We may not always agree on everything, but I'm very proud that in the last year we have worked tirelessly to meet our commitment to have transparency, openness, and collaboration in the way this party is governed. I now want to talk about a very difficult and yet important issue, which is the issue of money in politics. And let me say that while I may not agree with every decision that is taken by the party, I think that we should acknowledge the fact that tremendous progress has been made. And I especially want to acknowledge the incredible work of our controller, April Verrett, and the committee that worked to provide some very thoughtful recommendations. I believe that the California Democratic Party needs to continue this work. And what I would say is that as an officer, a top priority for me is to make sure that the party is successful, especially right now as we face the challenge of retaining control of the House of Representatives in the U.S. Senate. That requires money. To be an effective party when it comes to winning these tough races, we have to have money, which is why it's important, as April Verrett said, that we put our money where our mouth is and that we participate in CADEM 2022. And when we talk about what money we cannot take, it is important that we also talk about what money we can take, and especially identify new money that can be brought in to replace that money that is no longer on the table. But to be effective, we also need to have more than money. We need to motivate the base, the Democratic base that must come out for us to be victorious. And that Democratic base is composed of communities that are poor, communities of color that are struggling, communities that to be motivated to come out and vote for Democrats need to have a reason to do so. And I'll speak specifically about one of those communities that I'm a part of, the Latino community. A study recently showed that during the COVID pandemic, Latinos ages 22 to 54 were 8 times more likely to die from COVID than their white counterparts. For this community, for other communities, having access to affordable quality healthcare is a life and death situation, which is why they need to see progress on single payer in California. And for so many other communities that are issues where progress is not only, needed, it's essential. It's essential. Whether it's climate change with a Green New Deal, a true living wage. And I must say that part of the reason that progress has not been made is because of the influence of some corporate money in the political process. So we have to make changes and have that conversation. But I'm also of the belief that if anyone can lead the way in striking the right balance between how we decide what money to take and how to continue to be true to our principles, that it is the California Party that can do that. We can do it, and we can agree to disagree and still work together. That's what makes us who we are. California can and will lead the way. Thank you very much for that. And let me now talk about workers and standing for workers. We as Democrats, and specifically as California Democrats, are proud to be a pro-worker party. We are a party that believes that our success as a society is not defined how the wealthiest and the most successful corporations are doing, but how working people are doing in the state of California. That's who we are as California Democrats. We're proud to be that. And it is my honor right now to introduce a leader in this movement, the Executive Secretary, Treasurer of the California Labor Federation, someone that I admire, a hero for so many of us, Art Pulaski.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Rusty Hicks, for your leadership in building the party. I know Rusty, he's a strong leader and a good man. We're lucky to have him. And as some of you know, I'll be retiring in July after 26 years of serving California labor. It's been the honor of my life to represent hardworking men and women in California. I've always appreciated the partnership between the Democratic Party and labor. Together, we've achieved some groundbreaking things. I remember what it looked like the year we took over at the Federation. It was 1996, a Republican governor, Republican-controlled assembly, and we were one vote away from losing a majority in the legislature, in the Senate. Right away, we began targeting opposition seats together with you. As a result of that work, along with some helpful demographic changes and a few other allies, together we transformed this state. As you know, California is now the bluest of the blue. Result of all that work, We spent there are millions of doors now, millions of phone calls, and many, many more than that, mailers and worksite flyers. California Democrats, in partnership with labor volunteers, now comprise the strongest ground game in America. But as important as elections are, they don't mean much if we don't use it to make meaningful change in the lives of people who need it, including working people, who are the backbone of this party. And over the years, we've turned electoral success into enacting some of the strongest laws in the nation to protect workers, advance our rights. The first state in the nation to grant paid family leave. First, to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. We made sure all California workers have paid sick leave. We fought to end misclassification that strips workers of basic rights. We prioritized health and safety for workers, especially during the pandemic. And together we did so much more. While we've enjoyed a lot of success together, there are still some dark clouds on the horizon. Corporate lobbyists work every session to kill good bills, to support workers. They don't just lean on Republicans to carry the water anymore. They turn to Democrats to do their dirty work. And word to legislators, thank you for your outstanding work. It's been a real pleasure working with you. But now these corporate lobbyists even call some important bills job killers. You know, goddamn damn it, I'm so freaking tired of that bullshit. Every good legislator should put an end to that right now. Should jump at the chance to praise and then move every bill they call a job killer. I guarantee if you do that after the next term, you'll be finding them claiming that nonsense anymore. Now they know they can't win with Republicans only. This means corporate money is going to Democratic members, and lobbyists expect something in return. You can't simply elect Democrats to office and call it a day. To the contrary, electing Democrats only means that if we elect Democrats, we work like mad to elect them. They need to fight like mad for policies to lift up working families, unemployed, and working poor. And most importantly, every worker in California needs the right to join a union. That is what we're for. That's who we are, the party of workers. And we allow big corporate CEOs and their lobbyists to infiltrate our party with big checks and empty promises. Our values erode. California's future is bright. I feel more confident now than ever. But we can't take anything for granted. Every election is about African Americans, so many of whom have not seen justice over 200 years. A low-wage worker or immigrant worker somewhere in our state whose family not making ends meet, who's cheated on her wages, out of her wages, who's being harassed at work, whose boss is threatening her because of her immigration status, who's at risk of losing the small income that her family depends on. We stand with her. Labor and Democrats, we fight with her, with everything we've got. Because when all is said and done, our goal always has been to make the lives of California working folks better. Now we've done that together. We continue that together. Let's never lose sight of why building this party and our movement is so important to workers. Workers depend on us to stand up to big corporations, make things happen, and things that change lives. Despite challenges they face, workers aren't giving up or giving in. Look at the young workers leading the movement at Starbucks. They're so hungry to stand together in the union the busters don't even know what to do. In fact, every direction we look, there are folks who want to organize. It's our job to make sure they have a fair shot at it. After all, the playing field for workers' rights to organize has not been leveled in 50 years. Because of that, frankly, every Democrat ought to be ready to salute smartly and charge up the hill with them. But a fair shot is all they ask and all we expect. They are the future of this amazing state. I'm delighted to be with the California Labor Federation's next leader, Lorena Gonzalez, for transition to the end of July. She's going to be continuing to do what she's already done, proving herself to be a fierce warrior for working people of this state. And I look forward to watching the days of continued success and partnership under her leadership between Labor and the Democratic Party. It's been an honor to work with you in the fight to change lives and build power. Thank you for all you do. In the words of one of California's finest organizers, Mike Garcia, once leader of the USWW, when we fight, we win. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Pelosi again for your leadership, and you have been a hero for many of us. Please let me join me in welcoming the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California President Andrew Meredith.
Good morning, fellow Democrats. On behalf of the nearly 500,000 members of the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California, thank you for your participation in the convention this year. Also, a huge congratulations to President Art Pulaski on the completion of his tireless work for the California Labor Federation. As the 10th president of the State Building Trades and a former elected official, I'm proud of the long and storied connection between labor and the Democratic Party. The gains won by the party at the national, state, and local levels have the blood, sweat, and shoe leather of our members to thank. Our building trades unions in California, coming from 14 different trade unions, have a bigger presence in California politics than ever before, thanks to the investments in membership, advocacy, and organizing that we've all collectively made. I'm proud of the work our members have done in that space, and I'm committed to working with our affiliates to continue that work into the future. It's a true honor to represent the skilled, trained, and productive women and men building and maintaining the stores, churches, schools, and infrastructure projects in every corner of this state. The state building trades is a powerful, unparalleled force in California politics because our cause is just, the plight of our members is righteous, and the work we do is critical. We offer barrier-free pathways to the middle class for people from all walks of life, every gender, every age, and every racial background equally, free of harassment or discrimination. Those are the types of principles this party was founded on. While others within the party pretend to be experts on infrastructure, our members have built the vast majority of California's highways, bridges, power plants, and renewable energy projects, and we will never cease to dominate or speak for that market. Our 70,000 apprentices are the largest and most diverse group in the country, and we are training them to work in the emerging green industries like hydrogen production, wind generation, carbon capture, pump storage, electric vehicle charging, biomass, and more. Like our journey level workers, they will be building surface water storage projects that will bring an end to water shortages for Californians, just like we promised under Prop 1 in 2014. We must make substantial investments as a state in generation and transmission projects. We must build new water storage projects, and we must embrace technologies like carbon capture, biodiesel, biomass, and hydrogen as a bridge for our economy to the future. As I said yesterday during the Labor Caucus session,
phone doesn't work?
the members of the state building trades are not the enemy of progressive ideas or ideologies. We are instead the workforce that's capable of building the infrastructure needed to accomplish many of their goals. We aren't the enemy of housing advocates either. We are the skilled and trained workers that can help deploy a massive investment in housing statewide. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that at some point, the wages earned by our members in various industrial sectors became less important to some in our party than efforts to kill California businesses. Likewise, the possibility of engaging building trades members in the construction of housing has taken a backseat to the interests of developers with some party advocates. Understand this, We, as an organization, will not be silenced or marginalized in a party that we helped build. As we saw yesterday by the shameful comments made by the chair of the platform committee and the failure of the party to condemn those comments, some activists approach labor with open hostility in this party. That cannot continue. Our support for the Democratic Party can never be a one-way street. The issues important to our members must be issues important to this party. We stand with those and only those that commit to supporting our members. We aren't a charity, and our support is never a given. We will always put the plight of our own members at the forefront of what we do. As a party, we must get back to our blue-collar roots. We must refrain from becoming the mouthpiece for unrealistic policy goals that hurt the working class and hurt the poor. Our members are educated on these issues, and they will hold politicians accountable when their own livelihoods are coming under attack. This party must run back to the middle class, blue-collar values that brought us the gains that we enjoy in California. The time is now. Working people cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Please welcome California Teachers Association President Toby Boyd.
Hello, Democrat Party, delegates, and friends. I'm Toby Boyd, kindergarten teacher and president of the California Teachers Association. I bring greetings from our more than 310,000 educators throughout the state. It's an honor to be with you today, even if it is virtually. I said in my speech last year that I'm amazed by the resilience of Californians. That resolve was further tested over the past year as we lost more lives, as families were forever changed, as parents, teachers, school employees, and communities were stretched far beyond what we believed to be our capacity. We, as Californians, as Democrats, as educators, were tested over and over the past 2 years. There were real struggles, real battles, friend versus friend, neighbor versus neighbor, family versus family. It was enough to cause some of us to nearly break, understandably, maybe even rightfully. And yet, here we are. We are open. We are a new chance. Sun Tzu said, in the midst of chaos, there's opportunity. While Tupac said, long live the rose that grew from concrete. Different centuries, different philosophers, but the settlement is the same. We have a chance to build something new from the chaos of COVID. We have the opportunity to reimagine public education, to conceive of our schools that are so much more than what's happening inside the classroom. Schools are the heart of our communities. They unite diverse, engaged stakeholders to make the school community stronger and support the whole child. Simply put, this means schools that prioritize academics, as well as social and emotional well-being of students. Schools that prioritize health clinics, school counselors, and nurses, as well as expand learning opportunities, after school and enrichment programs, and real-world experiences for our students. Community schools engage families and communities to identify and meet community needs and prioritize inclusive decision-making among students, educators, families, and communities. Every school is different because every community is different. And we are fortunate that Governor Gavin Newsom and Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, share the same goals and have prioritized funding to expand community schools as we collectively reimagine public education. Research shows that students who are enrolled in and participate in community schools have positive academic and non-academic outcomes, including improving in student attendance, behavior, and academic achievement. Community schools are one of the biggest tools to address longstanding inequities in public education, which we sorely and desperately need to, and especially as we transition out of this pandemic. Community schools are the answer to the people and organizations loosely or tightly formed that seek to dismantle public education. Rather than giving taxpayer monies to private and religious schools in the form of vouchers or so-called education savings accounts. We should be investing directly in public education and working to make every neighborhood school the best it can be. This year, as parents, students, educators, and school employees across the state fought to maintain some semblance of normal in the face of the pandemic, anti-public school proponents introduced 3 initiatives in an attempt to topple public education. 2 of these initiatives have been advanced by former Republican candidates for governor Kevin Kiley and Larry Elders, former Trump advisor Rick Grindle. Look him up it'll scare you, let me just tell you. And the California School Choice Foundation. Commonly known as vouchers, they seek to drain resources from public schools by using state dollars to send students to private and religious schools. And they prevent the state from requiring that these private and religious schools meet certain requirements containing or pertaining to teacher standards and curriculum, health and safety guidance, and discipline policies. Now, one of these vouchers initiatives was withdrawn, but the other one is still gathering signatures. Whether it qualifies this year is still yet to be determined, but one thing we know for sure is that they promised to bring it back in 2024. Even though California voters have soundly defeated vouchers initiatives twice, these anti-public education groups never go away. They wrap their destructive agenda in words like choice, but are rooted in just the opposite. Pulling between $4 and $7 billion of public education when we're recovering from a pandemic isn't a choice I would make. It's why CT is working hard with Governor Gavin Newsom, Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, Assembly Speaker and Public Instruction Tony Thurmond to prioritize public programs like community schools, transitional kindergarten to prepare children for learning, special education, and social and emotional support to provide resources for our students most in need. We're focusing on school nutrition to ensure that hunger is not an obstacle to learning, and on early literacy because children who read early excel in other aspects of learning. And we are working to expand the teacher pipeline program, training and retention opportunities for educators so that the teacher shortage that was exacerbated by the pandemic isn't defined by it. This is the work we do, willingly, intentionally, and thoughtfully. What we want is high quality public education for every student in California. What we want are fair and equitable resources for children with disabilities, for English learners, and for students that need just a little extra help. We want our profession to be honored and respected, for educators and all workers to be valued for the work they do. I stand here before you almost 2 years to the date that this pandemic changed our lives. Like parents, students, educators, we simultaneously braved and fearfully bowed but not broken by what we can only hope is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We fought to reopen our schools safely by following science and advocating for vaccines, supporting in-school COVID testing programs, and better ventilation programs. As I said, we have the opportunity to rise out of this pandemic crisis stronger than we were when we began. This is what we really want for public education. Thank you.
Thank you, President Boyd. Please join me in welcoming SEIU California President David Huerta.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here and to speak to you on behalf of SEIU's 700,000 members here in California. Frontline workers have been through hell in the last 2 years, but we have survived. And through the hell of danger, disease, loss, and economic disaster, we have arrived in a brand new place. We're not accepting the old deal anymore: exploitation, inequality, and exclusion. Working people across the nation and up and down California are standing up and saying, "Ya basta, enough is enough." We demand that every single worker, whether a janitor, a social worker, a caregiver, a fast food worker, or a child care provider, have the basic building blocks of a decent life: a fair paycheck with a living wage and a voice at work, affordable housing in our communities and cities, access to health care, retirement security, clean air and water, good schools, affordable colleges for our children. I believe this is something all of us here today can agree on. But how do we get there? There's only one way to get there, expanding and defending our democracy, putting power back in the hands of working people, people of color, immigrants, and women, and that power will transform our society. Let me give you a few examples of that power. When Anabela Aguirre, an immigrant from Guatemala, was raped in an empty office building she was cleaning, she was silent and afraid to tell anyone. She kept working so that her children could keep eating. But when she learned that other janitors in her union had faced the same thing, she became an activist and helped pass 2 landmark laws protecting janitors from sexual assault. Now she leads a team of janitors, women and men, who provide peer-to-peer training to stop sexual harassment and rape in the janitorial industry. From fear to fearlessness, from silence to voice, from isolation and helplessness to collective power. Let me give you another example. Delia Vargas is a quiet and unassuming immigrant and a mother of 3 who works at McDonald's in Oakland. She hates being called a leader, but that is exactly what she is. Instead of being given PPE at the height of the pandemic, they were told to wear coffee filters and doggy diapers to protect themselves. Delia led her colleagues on an unprecedented 48-day strike. Their McDonald's is now under a court order requiring safer conditions and consultation with workers. Both of these women, women of color, immigrant women, so often overlooked, are the faces of the new worker movement that is gaining strength. And they will not be denied. Let me be clear. We have a voice. Ours is not a movement of the voiceless. This is a movement that will demand that the earless, those who don't want to listen, finally pay attention to our just demands. Workers like Anabela and Delia are organizing in nursing homes, fast food restaurants, community clinics, and work sites up and down the state. And every one of you can be part of this movement. Support workers who are organizing and join us as a party and as a state to put working people first, standing up to corporate power. Let's make corporate Democrats think of the past, and let's build a progressive California today. When we do that, we will be able to achieve what we have long fought for, a true democracy in our communities and in our economic power for Anabela and for Delia and for millions of workers. Expanding our democracy to allow all working people, immigrant citizens alike, to live to our fullest potential. Healthcare and long-term care for all, and a strong safety net. Good jobs, living wages, and unions for all workers. Quality education and an opportunity for all of our children. And affordable housing in clean and safe communities. And an end to anti-Blackness and anti-immigrant sentiment. This isn't a pipe dream. It's called transformation. And together we can do it. Sí se puede. Thank you.
Honored guests, please welcome Melahat Rafi, your California Democratic Party Secretary. Let's show Melahat some love.
First, I want to thank David and Tony for being with us today, and Andrew for joining us by video. We are the Party of Labor. When listening to David and Tony speak, I could tell their passion was real. For those of you who still don't know me, my name is Melahat Rafi. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so proud to be your CDP secretary. I want to begin my speech the same way I often do, by honoring my parents who in the early 80s fled a war-torn Iran through multiple countries to arrive in the United States with 3 children, 2 suitcases, and $500 cash. Today, like many, I find myself reflecting on that story in a different light as we watch the horrors of the war unfolding in Ukraine. Sadly, the same story of mothers fleeing with young children, occupiers destroying neighborhoods, and families being torn apart are being written for thousands of Ukrainians today. The news also reports that foreigners, specifically Africans, are being treated differently than their blonde-haired, blue-eyed neighbors. We are seeing that even in the midst of chaos and war, racism persists. As I've reflected over the past weeks about the invasion by Russia, I'm painfully reminded of the trauma of my own story. PTSD is real, y'all. My trauma and my experiences have influenced my personal story in this country, who I am as a Democrat, who I am as a mother, and who I am as a leader. It can be easy to forget how different we all are. We forget that each one of us in this party has a personal story to tell, struggles that we have overcome, and a unique vision for what will make our party better. Some of us believe that environmental justice must supersede all other priorities because we see the devastation of climate change in front of our eyes. Some of us believe that a union job in any industry is the route out of poverty because it gives our families a shot at a better life. And some of us believe that we need to get back to the basics and focus on our farmers and agriculture supply chain. Guess what? Every single one of these is a priority that has a place in our party. Each and every one of those visions comes from a lived experience that may not be your own, but represents an important voice. We will not survive as a party if the toxicity towards one another goes unchecked. Is it disappointing that AB 1400 didn't come up on the floor for a vote this year? Absolutely. As a small business owner, I know how difficult it is without a shadow of a doubt that AB 1400 would have solved many of the challenges I and other business owners face to provide insurance for our employees, not to mention the millions of uninsured Californians that would have benefited from this. But instead of asking, why is this person not with us, we should ask, how can we get them to join us? We vilify those that don't do what we believe is right without considering the possibility that they believe just as strongly that they are right. Ultimately, it is critical that we build this party up and out rather than tear it down. And we must not mistake uniformity for accountability. It is easy to yell and scream in caucus meetings and committee meetings or blast people on Facebook because of disagreements. I know that I'm guilty of that, and I think many watching this video on the Zoom today may be guilty of that too. It is much harder to sit down with someone and hear their story and understand their why. We have an opportunity, and we can do better, and serve as examples for the rest of the country. No better example than the open tent of the Democratic Party to show that diversity can be strength. Lastly, I want to leave you with a thought. At 82 years old, 5 years before the death of the notorious late, great Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she returned to Harvard and gave a speech and gave this advice to young women. Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. I offer that same challenge to all of us. Fight diligently for what you believe in and hold people accountable, but never forget that it will take all of us together working through our differences and listening to each other's stories that will win at the end of the day. So thank you. It is now my honor to introduce your Senate Pro Tem President, one of my sheroes, someone who understands why it's important to work together and brings people together. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Tony Atkins.
Well, thank you and good morning, California Democrats. Thank you for taking your time to join with grassroots activists from all around our great state as we move the 2022 campaign season into high gear. With all that's happening in the world, in our country, and in California, Democrats have a special challenge this year. And that challenge is for Democrats to effectively tell our story of success and the positive outcomes we've won for real people. So in my brief time with you today, I want to take a moment to reflect on our successes and prepare for that challenge. When we're at a voter's door or have them on the phone, these are the kinds of successes I hope we'll all be sharing with them. At the federal level, Democrats, without a single Republican vote, passed the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 stimulus package, the American Rescue Plan, one of the largest economic relief measures in American history. In November, Congress passed the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will inject federal money into America's aging public works system to repair our roads and bridges, renovate ports, expand broadband access, and replace every lead pipe in the country. Here in California, my colleagues and I in the Senate Democratic Caucus, together with Speaker Anthony Rendon and Governor Gavin Newsom, have been proud to step up and stand with you on the ground in our districts and on the legislative floors. Thanks to years of responsible budgeting by Democratic governors and the legislature, we've been able to pass historic budgets that not only provide critical services and programs that Californians need, but make investments that further help families, especially during the pandemic when needs were at an all-time high. That includes $8.1 billion in tax cuts for working families through the Earned Income Tax Credit, and stimulus funding for working people earning up to $75,000. Positive outcomes for real people. It includes a record level of funding, $12 billion for housing and homelessness to build momentum as we move forward to end this decades-old problem. It includes new policies and funding that push back on climate change as relentlessly as climate change is bearing down on us. And that's not all. I may not be able to fit everything in today, but we have to remember to take all the time we need to get the good word to voters. We move closer to healthcare for all by further expanding Medi-Cal to all Californians over the age of 50, regardless of immigration status. We extended paid sick days for California workers to protect frontline workers and help small businesses keep the doors open and the lights on. And there's more, like more childcare, increased funding for education at all levels, paving a pathway to debt-free college, all while continuing to build our reserves and pay down debts to help us weather future crises and downturns. And as someone who has worked to ensure abortion services and reproductive health care for almost 40 years, I will stand with my colleagues and our coalition partners to ensure those basic rights and needed services are in place for everyone. As we prepare for this year's elections during these uncertain times, we must keep our eye on the ball and repeat what has been successful. We can't rest on our laurels, but we do need to constantly show and remind voters that we are the party with a successful track record helping working families. As I mentioned in my convention letter, grassroots organizing is more crucial than ever, and that's what we do best. I know that we will do the work, and I hope that we will keep the faith in each other, in our values, and in the party that believes in science, justice, and equity. The Democratic Party that not only believes in positive outcomes for real people, the Democratic Party that produces positive outcomes for real people. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Speaker of the California State Assembly, Anthony Rendon.
Welcome. It's great to be here. After so many months of virtual meetings, I'm sorry I can't stand in front of you. At a convention like this, there's usually a lot of energy. We need that energy to get things done here in California. California has been a leader in so many ways, and it is because of the energy of people like you. In the Assembly and Legislature, we accomplished a lot for Californians in 2021, and we need to keep our state moving forward. It will take your support. Our recent accomplishments would have been impossible without that help. We did things because you wanted us to do them and because you believed they were right for California. At times, we were only able to have success because your support pushed us over the top. Because we were together, your efforts allowed us to beat back a ridiculous attempt to recall our governor. Because we were together, the Senate and Assembly were able to create a budget that made a difference to the Californians who needed it most. We were able to extend labor protections. We were able to extend eviction protections. We were able to help people who were hurt by COVID's impact on their workplaces. Now we need to keep building on those successes. The biggest task we face is climate change. Everything you care about is affected by climate change. If you care about housing, we know that growing wildfire danger and sea rise are affecting our ability to build housing safely in some places. If you care about transportation, you should know how sea level changes are already washing over roads in some places. If you care about health, it's the knowledge that rising temperatures are already bringing tropical pathogens to our doorstep. If you care about seniors, we are looking at the prospect of more and more extreme heat incidents like the ones that have killed 4,000 people or more in California in the last decade. When I say climate change is affecting everything, I mean everything. Every major issue in California has a climate element. We have been working hard in the past decade to slow climate change before it's too late. Now we have to add another element to our attack on climate. On top of cutting emissions and boosting clean energy, we need to tackle the adaptations that will fight back against extreme heat, new illnesses, housing limitations, and transportation challenges. We must adapt. Last year, we poured $300 million into helping our plan for climate adaptations. We allocated another $500 million without mitigating extreme heat, our biggest killer in natural disasters. This year, we expect to add at least 300 million more. We also have a lot of important bills to make sure environmental impacts are mitigated in the communities where they occur, to regulate freeway expansion in areas of heavy pollution and poverty, and to establish a statewide heat monitoring officer. There's much, much more. We are planning more because we know climate change affects everything we care about. We're also planning more because we know each of these challenges is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make life better for Californians. It's critical that we act now before it's too late. We know we have to do so. Seeing the future and knowing what the tasks are can give us hope that we can meet the challenges. I want you with me on this effort. We can do it. Thank you.
It's time for California Democratic Party Controller April Barrett. Let's give her a virtual round of applause.
Good afternoon, Democrats. I must start by acknowledging and saluting and thanking the 400,000 women and men of SEIU Local 2015. They are my rock and my guide. I also want to start by acknowledging and thanking the team of leaders that I am so proud to be one of. Rusty, Betty, David, and Melahat, thank you for allowing me to be myself. And so much appreciation must go to the staff of the California State Democratic Party and the leaders of the committees that have done amazing work to bring us to this convention. Thank you all. Democrats, we are gathering for this convention at an incredible time in history. One, I believe, where we are seemingly where there is a seemingly endless list of simultaneous crises that will either alter our way of life or they will create the opportunity for us to win the transformational change that many of us dream for and fight for. Man-made crises that are intended to divide us must be what motivates us to come together in spite of our differences. Putin's invasion of the Ukraine, it threatens the sovereignty of that nation and must bring about world peace. It must unify nations around the world in ways we haven't seen in generations. The rise of white supremacy, authoritarianism, corporate greed, it threatens the very fabric of our democracy here in America. It must be a calling call for those of us that believe in freedom and justice to link arms. The COVID pandemic has wreaked havoc everywhere. It has left no one and anything unscathed. It has exposed the fragility of our healthcare system and social safety net. It has weakened our economy. It has shown the flaws in our workforce and workers' rights. It has destroyed our connectedness and so much more. Will we simply move on and return to a so-called normal, or will we double down on fixing all that has been broken and damaged for so long? The continued destruction of our planet and environment, an impractical and inhumane immigration system and laws, the still festering and painful original sin that is anti-Black racism that infects everything and everyone. The list of crises is long. I could go on, but I won't. I think I've made my point. Democrats, it's gut check time. We are down by 6, the ball is on their 30, and it's the 2-minute warning. What's the play? I say we all must run like hell. I say we all must block. We all must tackle. We all must have each other's back. Dare I say we all must be a team, one team. It is not time to argue over who gets the ball. We all just have to do our part to ensure the win. In 2022, the stakes are higher than ever before. This is no ordinary midterm election. It's time to get to work, Democrats, doing what we know how to do and doing it better than we ever have before. Leading as only California as only Californians know how to do, electing Democrats up and down the ballot. Let's send strong majorities to the Assembly and the Senate, to every statewide office in Sacramento. Let's fill up city halls and municipal buildings with Democrats across the state. Let's send our president, our dear vice president, and our amazing Madam Speaker a stronger House and a Senate that can deliver on the change we all want to see. But not just any Democrats. Democrats that will uphold the values and the principles of our great party. Democrats that believe in freedom and justice and are willing to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work to fight for it. Over the next 2 days, we will make decisions together. Let's make those decisions with civility. Let's remember we are on the same team. Let's win with and for one another. Let's go get it, Democrats. The next set of speakers will focus on the work ahead of us. Together, we will create a better tomorrow, not just for ourselves, but a better tomorrow that will live on for generations to come. I'm honored to welcome State Senator Dr. Richard Pan. My apologies, Mary Creasman.
I am not Senator Richard Pan, but I am so excited to be here today. This is going to be an incredible year of opportunity for our values. And we know the role that California plays in a year like this. But I want to talk about California. I want to talk about the California Democratic Party. Because we know California is such a huge incubator and catalyst for change nationally and globally. But that role that California plays nationally and globally, the California Democratic Party plays that role for California. This is the party that incubates and catalyzes the change that we so desperately need across the world. And this is a beautiful party that's what our identity is, what our the most powerful tool to get elected across our state in crisis, to protect us and move us forward and protect our most vulnerable. That's who this party is. And this is a party that knows that the status quo isn't good enough. The status quo has given us wildfires, pollution, extreme heat, drought. That's what the status quo has given us. This is a party that knows that we have to disrupt politics as usual collectively. That's our job. We know how to solve the climate crisis. That's the good news. We know how to make clean energy. We know how to transition our transportation. We know how to transition our buildings and decarbonize our buildings. We know how to make our communities and our landscapes more resilient. That's the hard part, but we have those policy solutions. We know how to do all of that. That's not our problem. Our problem is that we do not have the political will to do it at the rate and scale that science tells us we have to. But we can build that power. The California Democratic Party is excellent at building that power. This is a party that wrestles with those values, that direction, and how we hold our leaders accountable. And the truth is that work together to fight about who we are and who we're going to be in the future is the only thing that makes change. That deeply democratic process, a part of the Democratic Party, is the only thing that will catalyze the change we need to see. And the truth is, we know we can make that change. And as we look towards what it's going to take, we need to look towards our leaders. We need to measure our success as a party, not by how many Democrats we have in office, but what we and our leaders are doing to make sure we are passing policies and making investments that make people's lives better and protect our future. This isn't about numbers. This is about changing people's lives for the better and protecting our future. That needs to be our measure of success as a party and as a state. That's what we're working for. And I have a sneak peek for you. EnviroVoters is releasing our annual environmental scorecard in a couple of weeks. And we have a number of Democrats in the legislature who are scoring less on environmental votes than Republicans in our states. That's the truth. And I have to say, climate delayers at this point in time are more dangerous for us than climate deniers. I'm going to say that again. Climate delayers at this point in time are more dangerous for us than climate deniers. We cannot afford to wait. Because as California has an outsized burden to play, the Democratic Party has an outsized burden to play, not just to solve the climate crisis, but to define how we solve the climate crisis. Because be clear, we will get to a point when we are all rushing for higher grounds. Big changes will be made. We won't have to convince people to change. People are going to be rushing to save themselves. And who will be left behind? Black, Indigenous, people of color, young people, women, vulnerable communities will be left behind at that point. At that point, it will be too late. But California, right now, can define a future that advances justice, re-envisions our economy not to be based on pollution, extraction, and exploitation, but to be equitable and just for all. We can challenge convention. We can say, we change what we believe is possible. We believe more is possible for our future and our political system. And we challenge anybody who says that we can't solve the climate crisis, grow our economy, advance equity, and protect our workers at the same time. Because we can do all of that, and we have to do all of that. And the truth is, change never comes unless we get a little uncomfortable with each other, unless we have those tough conversations and we push one another, unless we grow up together in a way that holds ourselves accountable and our movement accountable to this work. We have to get a little uncomfortable in this work together. But when we do, big change happens and a future can change. That's the values of this movement. And we can define what acting on climate looks like for the nation and the world. Join us at www.envirovoters.org. Thank you.
Now it is time to welcome State Senator Dr. Richard Pan.
Hello, Democrats. I'm Dr. Richard Pan, a child of immigrants, a father, a pediatrician, chair of the Senate Committee on Health, a proud Democrat. I am California. You are California. We are California. I know this is not the way we wanted to meet. We're not physically together, feeling the energy and excitement of the progress Democrats have made and the shared frustration of where we still need to go. But we are not physically together for a simple reason. You care. You care about the disabled, the elderly, people of color, transit workers, retail workers, health. You're 955,000 Americans that have already died and are grieving families. You care about the more than 130 people that died just this week in California, the thousands this week right here that have COVID and must live with the risk of disability that long COVID may bring. People are counting on us, back on the small minority of extremists that get loud when we care about reproductive freedom, extremists try to stop us. When we care about marriage equality, extremists try to stop us. When we care about climate change, extremists try to stop us. Now, as we care to end this pandemic in a way that protects everyone, extremists are still trying to stop us. Because when you, California Democrats, speak up, you challenge your privilege. The privilege that says some lives are more valuable than others, that those with means have more value than those with less. But the good news is that we, the people that care, are the majority. We are the pro-choice majority, the pro-equality majority, the pro-environment majority, and we are the pro-vax majority. And that's why I'm proud to work with legislators around the state, with my colleagues in the vaccine work group, Senators Wiener and Newman, Assembly members Aguilar-Curry, Lowe, Wicks, and Dr. Weber, who you'll be hearing from soon, to make sure your caring moves from grassroots action to real policy change. We are fighting to keep our schools open and safe, to make our workplaces safe for all workers, and to fight dangerous disinformation. We fight because we're the purveyors of the American dream. We are building a better America, an America that says just because you're a family of color, disabled, or any of the 100 million Americans at higher risk of death or disability from COVID, that you are worth as much as anyone else. An America that makes sure everyone has access to life-saving vaccines, viral treatments, masking, and testing. An America that will stop the spread of violence and intimidation led by the January 6th insurrectionists and the leaders that abused our recall process. We are patriots because we care about all American lives. We aren't just fighting the pandemic. We're fighting for equity. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting to protect us. Thank you, California Democrats. Remember to mask up.
Please welcome Assembly Member Dr. Akilah Weber.
Hello, Democrats. I'm Dr. Akilah Weber, a proud mom, a physician, Assembly member, and most importantly, a lifelong Democrat. I know this is not how we planned on seeing each other this week, but I applaud our chair, Rusty Hicks, and all of you for putting safety for all in the forefront when organizing this convention. Because the truth is, COVID, even on the decline, is still here. As of yesterday, California is averaging 6,000 new COVID cases daily, with some of the highest numbers being reported right here in Los Angeles County. Over 86,000 Californians have lost their lives to COVID, and so many more have been impacted by the death and disability this disease brings. Latinos and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders have a higher disproportionate number of COVID cases when compared to the numbers in our state. So this pandemic has exposed deep inequalities that as California Democrats, we have been fighting to fix for years. Now, in this phase of the virus, we may not have all the exact answers, and we may be tired, but we are a lot smarter about how the disease works and who it hurts the most. While some push on the urgency of getting back to normal, I know California Democrats aren't fighting to go back anywhere. We are fighting to move forward with the urgency of equity. And it's because of this focus, the California Democrats' focus on equity, I am working side by side with legislators from around the state and our vaccine work group to fight for COVID policies that do not leave any Californians behind. We will fight to keep schools open and safe. We will fight for safe workplaces, especially our essential workers that make our daily living possible. We will fight against and stand up to misinformation and address the disinformation that has been preying and profiting at the cost of our most vulnerable. We know that vaccines are the cornerstone of COVID safety, and used along with testing, treatment, and other safety measures, we will get to an official end of this pandemic. That's why we're proud that California has given out more than 71 million COVID vaccines. And although we have done great work, when we see the data that shows that only 55% of eligible African Americans are vaccinated against COVID, we understand that there is still much work to be done. And so we are fighting to move forward with the urgency of equity. The urgency of equity does not start or stop in Sacramento. Equity starts in our communities. It starts with the work that you have been doing and are doing every day. These 2 years have tested us in unbelievable ways. So I want you to know, I see the work that you have done to protect us. I see how you have checked on your neighbors during this pandemic. I see how hard you have worked to make sure that your family and friends got vaccinated. I see how hard you work to fight for Governor Newsom and to stand up to the GOP and anti-vaccine extremists that don't care about equity. I see you. And it's because of your work and continued work, we will truly make this state a California for all. Thank you, California Democrats.
Please welcome Los Angeles County Supervisor, the Honorable Hilda Solis.
Good morning, California Democrats. I'm Hilda Solis, Los Angeles County Supervisor and former United States Secretary of Labor for President Obama. I represent more than 2 million people in LA County, and I'm honored to address our state party today to talk about our work on behalf of small businesses during this pandemic. Not only are small businesses the backbone of our economy, they bring vibrancy and community to our neighborhoods. These businesses, particularly those owned by women, veterans, people of color, LGBTQ people, and immigrants who came to pursue the American dream, add immense value to our society. During the pandemic, thousands of entrepreneurs and local businesses closed down, some permanently, and many are still struggling today. But as Democrats, we believe that government does have a role to play in our marketplace, especially when jobs and livelihoods are at stake. That is why we allocated billions of dollars to help with the economic recovery, thanks to our Democratic majorities and President Biden, and despite Republican opposition. At the local level, I have seen firsthand how this funding has helped rescue some of the most vulnerable businesses on the brink of collapse. Democrats, through the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan, have provided a lifeline to many mom and pop businesses throughout our state and right here in Los Angeles County. They were able to pay their staff and purchase the equipment necessary to reopen safely because of our work and advocacy. The 4 million small businesses in California employ more than 7 million people. They're the reason why our state is the 5th largest economy in the world, and we must continue to support them. At the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, I was proud to lead efforts to distribute $170 million in grant funding to thousands of small and micro entrepreneurs so they could buy PPE and reopening equipment in order to keep their employees and customers safe. The county established thousands of testing and vaccination sites in order to save lives and livelihoods by reopening our economy more quickly. We offered loans and grants to businesses who needed help to revitalize and rebuild their stores. This was our approach to creating jobs and fostering economic growth and recovery by working in partnership with our business sector. Instead of giving huge tax cuts to multinational corporations, we should be supporting our local businesses right here at home. Our business community is full of entrepreneurs and very talented people, some of who came from very little and ultimately achieved the American dream. I know because my husband used to own a small business. It was hard work, but he was proud to do it every day in order to provide for our family. But we are at a very critical moment in our history. People are struggling with the immense challenges we have ahead. And this is why Democrats must continue to build on our great work to support the lifeblood of our economy, small businesses. Now, I would like to introduce a small business owner from my district, Barney Santos, who founded an amazing food market in the city of Montebello and can attest to how Democratic policies have helped his business survive and ultimately thrive.
Hello, it's an honor to be here, and thank you so much to the California Democratic Party and Supervisor Hilda Solis for this opportunity, and for all of your incredible work on the Board of Supervisors. You are a true champion for our communities. I started my business, Boulevard Market, in Montebello during the height of the pandemic, at a time when everything seemed uncertain and the economy was still struggling to recover. We had an innovative idea to open up a food hall and a business incubator using shipping containers to host different food vendors and entrepreneurs. But we did not have any funding to open it safely during the pandemic. Thanks to a grant from the county and the business assistance funds from the federal government, we were able to purchase reopening supplies and open our facility last year. It was such a blessing. Since then, it's been a thriving community space where people come together to eat, enjoy each other's company, and get back to normal life. This is a dream come true for me. I really couldn't have done it without the assistance from our government agencies and Supervisor Solis. I truly want to thank the Democratic Party for passing policies which are helping Latino and minority-owned small businesses like mine. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Okay. Please Please welcome Jennifer Kumiyama.
Hello, California Democrats. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today, and I'm so grateful to serve alongside each of you. Last week, President Biden delivered the State of the Union and spoke of a more inclusive America and the beauty in our nation's diversity. As a woman of color with a rare disability called arthrogryposis, hearing that from my president made me beam with pride. The truth is, in order to create a more inclusive America, we need to ensure that disability intersectionality is implemented into every single piece of policy passed, because people with disabilities exist in all spaces. We exist in the workforce. We are homeowners, we are renters, parents, we are children, seniors, we are Black and Indigenous, we are in the LGBTQ community, and we are doctors and nurses. We are everywhere. And until our leadership realizes that, our nation will never be truly inclusive. The disability community is the only community that anyone can become part of at any moment, as we've seen with COVID. Let's keep reminding people of that and keep fighting for universal access to public spaces, educational institutions, medical facilities, transportation, affordable housing, everywhere. Equitable policy allows every person in our nation to have access to what they need to reach their highest potential. And that is an America that is truly inclusive. Happy Convention Weekend, fellow Democrats, and thank you so much for your tireless work that you do in your communities.
Hello, California Democrats. It's an honor to be here with you today. My name is Michael Tubbs, and I'm a son of Stockton who is losing his voice. I'm also the proud son of a single mother who worked incredibly hard, yet still had to raise me in poverty, and a father who has been incarcerated for most of my life. And you may now know, as my good friend April Verrett shared, that I had the privilege of serving as mayor of my hometown. And I was driven to public service because I saw that from an early age that talent and intellect are universal, but opportunities and resources are not. Yet people would point to my story as proof that anyone can make it, rather than questioning a system that makes getting out of poverty so rare, no matter how hard someone is working. Democrats, we live in the richest state in the nation, with more billionaires than any other country in the world, aside from the United States and China. Our state has the world's fifth largest economy, yet more than a third of our people are living near or below the poverty line. In all, there are more Californians living in poverty than the total population of 31 other states. Democrats, that is anti-democratic, and that is unacceptable. And we are fortunate to have bold leaders, many of whom we've heard from today, like Governor Newsom, Speaker Rendon, President Pro Tem Atkins, and generations of activists and progressive leaders who have come before us to make our state a place of promise for so many. But we must recognize that there is so much more work left to do to end poverty and create opportunity for all. This is the moment for California Democrats to lead that charge like never before. And this work begins first with understanding that poverty is the consequence of failed public policy and not failed individuals. From a broken criminal justice system, to inclusionary housing practices, to mountains of red tape that block access to life-changing resources. People-made policies create poverty, which means that people-made policies can end it too. And as we head into this election season, I submit to you today that one of our top priorities must be creating a new narrative about poverty in California, one that sheds light on policies that create, sustain, and perpetuate poverty, what I call the setup, instead of one that casts blame and shame on individuals who are living in poverty. And we all have a role to play in this fight, from activists to elected officials. And last month, we launched a new statewide initiative called End Poverty in California to upset the setup and end poverty once and for all. For many listening, End Poverty in California may sound radical, but not to students like Seiu, who I met at Compton Community College, who shared with me that the issue wasn't that she didn't want to go to school, but the issue was that she couldn't afford housing to lay her head after a long day of school. Ending poverty in California may sound radical to some, but it doesn't sound radical to the child care workers who are working and taking care of our most precious resources without enough money to pay the rent. Ending poverty in California may sound radical to some people, but it doesn't sound radical to folks throughout this state, the essential workers, those who are making our economy and our state move. So Democrats, as we work to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, let's be certain that our work isn't done. Because one thing about Democrats is that we deliver. And what we must deliver in this post-COVID-19 world is to end poverty in California. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But together, with the same energy we use to knock on doors, with the same energy we use to tweet, with the same energy we use to phone beg, we can join hands, hold each other accountable, and ensure that the golden state is golden for all by ending poverty in California. Thank you.
Don't call it a comeback. They've been here before. Please welcome back Vice Chair David Campos, Controller April Barrett, and Secretary Melahat Rafii.
Well, what an amazing day. California Democrats, are you fired up and ready to go? I know that I am. So thank you for joining us today for the general session number 1.
I'm fired up too. And I hope during lunch you take some time to connect with other Democrats virtually. Let's talk about what inspired us and begin to think about what you plan to do to help our party win the midterms.
If you're not fired up after this, I don't know what will fire you up. General session 2 begins promptly at 1:30, not Persian Standard Time, promptly at 1:30, with an exciting panel about women's leadership that you won't want to miss. Virtual doors open at 1 p.m., so feel free to come back early.
See you this afternoon.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. And yes, I've enjoyed this end of the convention from my bed on a Saturday. The next live stream will resume a brand new one. So I'm going to conclude this one and subscribe to Zenny62 to make sure that you get the notification for the next live stream for this afternoon session. Thanks. That ends this broadcast.